I told my husband he was terrible in bed, and everyone thinks I'm a monster for destroying his confidence. They don't know I was trying to save our marriage. They don't know what I'd been doing behind his back for months, or how desperate I'd become to make him step up so I could stop. My friends say I emasculated him, that no man recovers from hearing those words from his wife. My therapist suggested I was projecting my own issues onto him. Even my mother, who's criticized every choice I've made since I was 12, told me I'd crossed a line. But they're all focused on what I said. They're not asking why I said it, or what led me to that moment in our bedroom when I finally snapped. They're certainly not asking about the hotel receipts I've been hiding in my desk drawer. I'm going to tell you everything, including the part where I made things so much worse trying to fix my mistake. I need you to understand how I got here, sleeping alone in our king-sized bed, while my husband of 7 years treats our guest room like a monk's cell. Because the words I said weren't even the worst thing I did. Jake and I met in a marketing firm when I was 24. He was the guy who brought homemade cookies to staff meetings and remembered everyone's birthdays. Not the flashiest guy in the office, that was Marcus from sales, who wore expensive suits and always seemed to be closing deals over cocktails. But Jake had this stability about him, this kindness that felt like coming home after years of dating men who kept me anxious and off balance. When he proposed after 2 years together, kneeling in the botanical gardens where we'd had our third date, I cried because I felt so relieved, safe, like I'd finally made a smart choice. The sex was never earth-shattering. Even in the beginning it was more sweet than passionate. Lots of missionary position, him asking if I was comfortable finishing before I really got there. But I told myself that was okay, mature even. I'd had passionate relationships before and they'd all ended in chaos. Jake was different. Jake was forever material. We got married at a vineyard in Napa and I remember dancing with him at our reception, thinking I'd finally figured out what mattered. The problems started small. Year 3 I noticed I was initiating less. Year 4 we were down to twice a month. Year 5 I started having to think about other things during sex just to stay present. I'd focus on my grocery list or mentally redecorate our bedroom, anything to keep from acknowledging how disconnected I felt. I suggested we try new things once. Jake bought scented candles. I meant positions, toys, maybe role play, but I didn't push it. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Then I started noticing other men again. Not in a casual way, in the way I'd noticed men before Jake, when I was single and constantly aware of attractive strangers. At the gym, I caught myself watching this guy deadlift, admiring the way his shoulders moved. At work events, I lingered in conversations with male colleagues, laughing too hard at their jokes. I started dressing differently, wearing tighter dresses, lower necklines. Jake complimented me, said I looked beautiful. He didn't ask why I was suddenly putting in so much effort. I should have talked to him then. That was my first real mistake. Instead, I joined a book club that met at a wine bar downtown. I told Jake it was good for me to have hobbies outside our marriage, which was true. What was also true was that I'd noticed the guy who organized it on the community bulletin board, his photo showed someone younger than me, attractive, artsy looking. The kind of guy who probably knew what he was doing in bed. His name was Ryan. 29, worked as a freelance photographer, had read more contemporary fiction than I'd ever heard of. Third meeting, he and I stayed after everyone else left, talking about a novel neither of us had actually liked. Fourth meeting, his hand brushed mine, reaching for the wine bottle. Fifth meeting, I went home and initiated sex with Jake for the first time in months, imagining someone else's hands on me. I felt disgusting afterward. Jake fell asleep happy, thinking we'd turned a corner. I lay awake cataloging what kind of person I was becoming, but I kept going to book club. Ryan and I started texting about books, then about other things. He sent me photos from his shoots, urban landscapes, portraits of strangers, once a series he'd done on empty hotel rooms that felt loaded with suggestion. I'd read his messages during my lunch break, heart racing like a teenager. I told myself it was harmless. Just a friendship, just someone who made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile at home, sex with Jake became almost painful in its inadequacy. He'd do the same 3-step routine, kiss my neck, touch my breasts, enter me, and I'd lie there fighting resentment. Resentment that he'd never asked what I wanted. Resentment that I'd never been brave enough to tell him. Resentment that I'd married someone who thought good sex was just about being gentle and asking, is this okay? Every 30 seconds. The night everything changed started with a work dinner. Jake's company was celebrating some big acquisition. I wore a black dress that showed off the body I'd been sculpting at the gym, the body I'd been perfecting while thinking about someone who wasn't my husband. At dinner, I watched Jake interact with his colleagues. He was still that same sweet guy, telling dad jokes, being considerate, making sure everyone got a chance to talk. And I felt absolutely nothing. One of his coworkers, David, was different. Confident, slightly arrogant, the kind of guy who dominated conversations and made bold predictions about markets. At one point, he leaned close to me and said, "Jake's lucky, you're way out of his league." It was inappropriate, it was probably meant to test boundaries, and I smiled like he'd given me a gift. I went to the bathroom and texted Ryan, just something casual about being at a boring work dinner. He responded immediately, sneak away. Come meet me for a real drink. I stared at that message for 5 full minutes. This was the moment, the obvious fork in the road. I could delete his number, go back to my husband, suggest couples therapy, actually try to fix my marriage. I texted back where? I told Jake I wasn't feeling well, that I was going to grab an Uber home. He was immediately concerned, asking if he should come with me. I insisted he stay, that it was just a headache, that he should enjoy his celebration. He kissed my forehead and told me to text when I got home safe. The guilt should have stopped me, it didn't even slow me down. Ryan was at a cocktail bar in the Arts District, the kind of place with exposed brick and bartenders who took 10 minutes to make a drink. He'd saved me a seat at the bar, close enough that our knees touched when I sat down. We talked for an hour, the conversation flowing like it never did with Jake anymore. He asked me about my dreams, my fears, what I wanted from life. Questions Jake hadn't thought to ask in years. When Ryan's hand settled on my thigh, I didn't move it. When he suggested we go somewhere quieter, I heard myself say yes. We ended up at his apartment, a studio filled with camera equipment and art books. I'd like to say I hesitated, that I gave myself one last chance to leave. But the truth is, I was kissing him before the door fully closed. He pushed me against the wall, his hands in my hair, kissing me like he was starving, nothing gentle or tentative about it. We had sex on his couch, then later in his bed. It was everything I'd been missing, urgent, passionate, slightly rough. He knew exactly where to touch me, how much pressure, what pace. I came twice, real orgasms that I hadn't faked or imagined. Afterward, lying in his sheets at midnight, I felt more alive than I had in 5 years. Then I checked my phone. 7 missed calls from Jake. 11 texts, progressing from hope you're feeling better to please just let me know you're okay to I'm getting really worried. The last one was from 10 minutes ago, I'm about to call hospitals. I called him back, whispering so Ryan wouldn't hear. I told Jake I'd felt so sick that I'd thrown up in the Uber, that I'd been in the bathroom all evening, that my phone had died. The lies came so easily it scared me. Jake was just relieved I was alive. He said he'd let me rest, that he loved me, that he'd sleep in the guest room so he wouldn't disturb me. Perfect, considerate Jake, giving me exactly the space I needed to get away with betraying him. I went home at 1 a.m., showered for 20 minutes and slipped into our bed alone. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a mistake I'd never repeat, but I already knew I was lying to myself. I saw Ryan again 4 days later, then a week after that. Then it became a standing thing. Thursday nights I'd invent excuses. Girls' night, late yoga class, networking event. Jake never questioned me because I'd never given him reason to before. I was a good wife, everyone thought so. I was just having a temporary crisis, scratching an itch, and then I'd get it out of my system. Except the more I was with Ryan, the harder it became to be with Jake. Every time my husband touched me, I'd compare. His kisses were too soft, his hands too hesitant. His whole approach to sex felt like a chore he was trying to complete thoughtfully, like assembling furniture according to instructions. I started making excuses to avoid intimacy, headaches, early mornings, exhaustion. Jake noticed but didn't push. He thought he was being respectful of my needs. 3 months into the affair, Jake tried to plan a romantic weekend. He'd booked this bed and breakfast in wine country, the kind of place with 4-poster beds and couples massages. He was so excited when he told me, showing me the website on his phone, talking about how we needed to reconnect. All I could think was that Ryan had invited me to go camping that same weekend, and now I'd have to cancel. I went on the trip with Jake. I played the role of loving wife, held his hand during the wine tasting, laughed at his stories, posed for photos by the vineyard. That night, in our romantic suite with rose petals on the bed that he'd arranged as a surprise, Jake initiated sex. He was trying so hard, doing all the things he thought were romantic. Slow undressing, extended foreplay, gazing into my eyes. It was torture. I couldn't get aroused. I couldn't pretend this was enough. And suddenly I was angry, irrationally, unfairly angry at him for not being different, for not being what I needed without me having to tell him, for making me into someone who cheated. Afterward, as he lay there looking satisfied with himself, thinking he'd done well, something in me snapped. I said, we need to talk about our sex life. Jake went still. Okay, what about it? And that's when I said it, the words that everyone now knows, the sentence that made me the villain of this story. You're terrible at sex. You've always been terrible at it, and I can't keep pretending anymore. I watched his face crumble. He sat up, pulling the sheet around himself like he suddenly needed protection from me. What? I should have stopped. I should have softened it, taken it back. Instead, I doubled down. I told him he was boring in bed, that he'd never learned how to actually please a woman, that I'd been faking it for years because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I couldn't do it anymore. I made it sound like I was doing him a favor, giving him feedback he needed to hear. He just stared at me. Then he got up, got dressed, and walked out of the room. I heard him go downstairs. When he didn't come back after an hour, I found him sleeping in his car in the parking lot. He couldn't even look at me the next morning. We drove home in complete silence, and when we got there, he took his pillow to the guest room. He's barely spoken to me since. That was 6 weeks ago. I thought my cruelty would motivate him to change, to try harder, to become someone I could stop cheating on. Instead, he completely shut down. Jake stopped initiating anything. He started leaving for work earlier and coming home later. He was polite when we crossed paths, asking about my day, handling household logistics, but the warmth was gone. It was like living with a considerate roommate who I'd mortally wounded. Friends started noticing. His sister called me angry, saying Jake had confided in her about what I'd said. My own friends looked at me with disappointment when I explained. Why would you say that to him? My best friend Emma demanded. Even if it's true, you don't destroy someone like that. I tried to explain that I was trying to fix things to get him to step up. She just shook her head. You're not acting like someone trying to fix a marriage, Claire. You're acting like someone looking for an exit. She was more right than she knew, because I was still seeing Ryan. The night after the wine country disaster, I went straight to his apartment and had the kind of sex that felt like proof I'd been right to blow up my marriage. Ryan didn't know I was married. I told him I'd recently ended a long-term relationship. Every time I was with him, I told myself that once Jake and I officially separated, this wouldn't be cheating anymore. I was just getting a head start. But Jake wasn't giving me the separation I'd been unconsciously engineering. He just withdrew, became a ghost in our house. Started seeing a therapist without telling me, which I only discovered from the charge on our credit card. When I asked him about it, he said, I'm trying to figure out why I'm so fundamentally inadequate. The guilt hit like a physical blow. Jake, that's not, no, you were clear, he interrupted. 7 years and apparently I've been failing you the entire time. I need to work on that. He was going to therapy to fix himself, to become better at sex, to turn into someone worthy of me. And I was still sneaking off to hotel rooms with another man. I tried to pull back from Ryan. I canceled our next 2 meetings, told him I needed space. He was understanding at first, then confused, then hurt. Did I do something wrong? He texted. I wanted to tell him the truth, that he hadn't done anything wrong, that I'd been lying to him from the start, that I was married and broken, and using him as a temporary escape from my own cowardice. Instead, I said I just needed to focus on myself for a while. He responded with a long message about how special our connection was, how he'd been falling for me, how he hoped I'd come back when I was ready. Reading it made me feel like the worst person alive. At home, Jake's distance was somehow harder to take than his hurt would have been. He wasn't angry. He was just gone. The man who used to leave me notes in my lunch and text me random thoughts during his workday had disappeared. In his place was this hollow version who performed the motions of marriage without any of the feeling. I started trying to fix things. I apologized for how I'd said what I said, tried to explain that I'd been frustrated but shouldn't have expressed it so cruelly. Jake listened silently, then said, I appreciate that, like I was a colleague who'd apologized for missing a meeting. I suggested couples therapy. He said, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I'm still working on myself. I tried to initiate sex, thinking maybe if I showed him what I wanted, if we could rebuild physical intimacy, we could find our way back. He gently declined. I don't think that's a good idea right now. I don't want to disappoint you again. You wouldn't be, Claire. His voice was quiet. I'm sleeping in the guest room. Let's just leave it at that for now. Work became my escape. I threw myself into projects, stayed late at the office, volunteered for assignments I normally would have avoided. Anything to not be home in that mausoleum of a marriage. My boss commented on my renewed dedication. My performance reviews were glowing. I was succeeding everywhere except the one place that supposedly mattered. Then Ryan showed up at my office. I was leaving for the day when I saw him in the lobby holding flowers. My stomach dropped. What are you doing here? I missed you, he said, smiling. Thought I'd surprise you. Maybe we could grab dinner? I glanced around frantically. Several of my coworkers were still around, including David, Jake's colleague from that dinner. David was watching with interest. Ryan, you can't just show up at my work. Why not? I thought. He stopped, noticing my panic. Is everything okay? I pulled him outside, my mind racing. I told you I needed space. It's been 3 weeks. I thought, Claire, what's going on? Are you seeing someone else? The irony almost made me laugh. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. He moved closer, reaching for my hand. I'm crazy about you. If something's in the way, let's deal with it together. I'm married. The words just came out. Ryan stepped back like I'd slapped him. What? I'm married 7 years. We're separated. Kind of. It's complicated, like I said, but I should have told you from the beginning and I didn't, and I'm sorry. The lies kept layering, each one digging me deeper. Ryan's face cycled through emotions, shock, hurt, anger. Separated, kind of. What does that mean? We're living together still, but we're not really together. We're figuring out next steps. Does he know about me? Not exactly. Jesus Christ, Claire. He ran his hand through his hair. So what am I, your affair, the guy you're using while you figure out your marriage? No, it's not like that. What's it like then? Explain it to me, because from where I'm standing, you lied to me for months. Let me fall for you. Let me think we were building something real. People were starting to stare. I lowered my voice. Can we not do this here? Where should we do it? Your place? Oh wait, your husband's there. He shook his head. I'm such an idiot. All those times you couldn't meet on weekends or had to leave by midnight or couldn't tell me where you worked. I thought you were just private. You were just married. Ryan, don't. He dropped the flowers in a nearby trash can. Lose my number and maybe work on being honest with your husband. He deserves better than this. Hell, I deserved better than this. He walked away. I stood there in front of my office building, several coworkers definitely having witnessed at least part of that scene, feeling everything collapsing around me. That night I came home to find Jake in the kitchen making dinner, just for himself, one chicken breast, one portion of rice. He barely glanced up when I walked in. Hey, I said, hey, there's something I need to tell you. He turned off the stove. Okay. I almost told him everything. Almost confessed the whole sordid story and let the chips fall. But looking at him, at this man I'd already devastated with my words, who was now barely holding himself together, I couldn't do it. I saw he got charged for therapy, I said instead. How's that going? It's helpful. He plated his food. Dr. Morrison thinks I have some deep-seated intimacy issues, stems from childhood stuff, explains why I struggle with vulnerability and physical connection. I wanted to scream. His therapist was making him think this was all his fault, that he was the broken one. Jake, you don't have intimacy issues, we have communication issues, as a couple. Maybe, he picked up his plate, but I think I need to fix my stuff before we can work on couple stuff. If we work on couple stuff, I don't know if you even want that anymore. Of course I want that. He looked at me for a long moment. Do you? Because you don't seem happy, you haven't seemed happy for a long time. I'm trying. I know, you're trying really hard to fix me, to make me into someone better, someone adequate. His voice was so tired. But maybe I'm just not who you need and that's okay. Maybe we both need to accept that. He went to the guest room. I stood in the kitchen, realizing he was right. I was trying to fix him instead of fixing myself, blaming him for inadequacies that were really my own. The next day, David from Jake's company asked to grab coffee with me. We met at a place near my office and he was direct. That guy yesterday, the one with the flowers, that your boyfriend? My heart hammered. Why are you asking? Because I like Jake, he's a good guy, and if you're stepping out on him while making him feel like shit about himself, that's pretty cruel. He stirred his coffee. I'm not trying to get in your business, but I've seen what you're doing to him at work. He's a shell of himself, constantly apologizing for everything, second-guessing himself. And now I see you with some other guy outside your office and I'm putting pieces together. It's not what you think. Really, what is it then? I couldn't answer. David nodded slowly. Look, do what you want, but either commit to fixing your marriage or let Jake go. Don't keep him in this limbo while you explore other options. He doesn't deserve that. He left me sitting there, his words echoing. He was right. I was keeping Jake trapped, destroying his confidence while I figured out what I wanted. It was cruel in a way that transcended just the sex comment. That night I decided to actually end things with Ryan properly and focus on my marriage. I texted him asking to meet once more to talk in person. He agreed reluctantly. We met at the same cocktail bar where this all started. He looked guarded, hurt. What do you want, Claire? To apologize, really apologize. What I did to you was wrong. You didn't deserve to be lied to. Is that it? Because I didn't come here for an apology. I came because I need to understand. Did any of it mean anything to you, or was I just a distraction? I wanted to lie to make him feel better, but I owed him some truth. It meant something, you made me feel alive again, but that wasn't fair to you because I was using those feelings to avoid dealing with my actual life, my actual marriage. Are you going back to him? I'm going to try to fix what I broke. Ryan laughed bitterly. Good luck with that. You told him he was terrible at sex. I'm guessing you didn't mention you were cheating on him for months while you got up the courage to say it. No. Are you going to? That was the question, the one I'd been avoiding. I don't know. You should. If you're really trying to fix things, you need to start with honesty. Otherwise, you're just building on a foundation that's already cracked. He stood up. I mean it, good luck. I think you're going to need it. After he left, I sat there for an hour, thinking about foundations and cracks. About the fact that I'd cheated because our sex life was unsatisfying, then told Jake he was bad at sex as if that was the only problem. I made him the villain of our marriage when I was the one who betrayed us. I went home determined to come clean. Jake was in the living room reading. I sat down across from him. We need to talk, really talk. He put down his book. Okay. The thing I said to you about sex. I said it wrong at the wrong time in the worst possible way. But the reason I was so frustrated, I stopped. This was it, the moment to tell the truth. What? He prompted. I've been feeling disconnected from you for years, and instead of talking to you about it, I couldn't say it, couldn't force the words out. I've been unfair to you, blaming you for problems that are mine too. I know I haven't been attentive, Jake said. Dr. Morrison helped me see that. I've been coasting in this marriage, assuming everything was fine because you weren't complaining. I stopped trying to know you, stopped asking questions, stopped being curious about what you needed. He was giving me an opening, a way to shift blame back to him to make this a mutual failing, and part of me wanted to take it. It's not just you, I said. There's more I need to tell you about why I've been so distant. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Did you hear about Jake's promotion? He told everyone at work except you apparently. David just told me. I looked at Jake. You got promoted? He shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, found out today. It's not a big deal. Jake, that's huge. When were you going to tell me? I don't know. It didn't feel like something to celebrate given everything. He paused. They're moving me to the San Francisco office. It's a significant raise. They want me there in 3 weeks. The room tilted. San Francisco, that's 8 hours away. I know. Are you going to discuss this with me? I am discussing it right now. After you already accepted. I haven't accepted yet. I wanted to think about it first. He looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. Because the real question is whether you're coming with me or if this is the end. Everything I'd been about to confess died in my throat. This was the moment our marriage would be decided, and I was about to torpedo it with the truth about Ryan. I want to come with you, I said. Do you? Or do you want that? His perception cut through all my bullshit. Because I've been thinking a lot these past few weeks about what you said and what it means and whether we can actually fix this, and I'm not sure we can. Don't say that. Why not? You said I'm terrible at sex, that you've been faking it for years. That means our entire physical relationship has been a lie. What else has been a lie, Claire? Everything, I thought, all of it. I love you, I said out loud. I love you too. I've always loved you, but maybe love isn't enough when the fundamental compatibility isn't there. He stood up. I need an answer about San Francisco in 2 weeks. Not just whether you'll come, but whether you actually want this marriage. Because I can't keep living like this, walking on eggshells in my own home, sleeping in a guest room, feeling like I'm constantly being measured and found wanting. He went to bed, the guest bed. And I sat there realizing I'd managed to destroy my marriage without even the catharsis of full honesty. The next week was surreal. Jake started packing. Not everything, just sorting through stuff, deciding what he'd take to San Francisco. He did it methodically, without emotion, like he was already halfway gone. I tried to engage him in conversations about the future, but he kept it surface level. Logistics only. No feelings. I stopped sleeping. I'd lie in our bed alone, thinking about the choices that led here. If I just talked to Jake years ago about what I needed. If I'd suggested therapy before I started looking elsewhere. If I'd been brave enough to either fix my marriage or end it instead of betraying it. Emma came over one night after Jake left for a work dinner. She found me on the couch, staring at nothing. You look terrible, she said. Thanks, Claire, what's really going on? And don't tell me it's just about the sex comment, there's something else. And finally I told someone, everything, the affair with Ryan, the months of lying, the hotel rooms and Thursday nights and all the ways I'd betrayed Jake while blaming him for our problems. Emma listened without interrupting, her expression growing harder with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then you need to tell him. I can't, it would destroy him. He's already destroyed. You did that with your words, but at least those were supposedly honest words, right? Supposed to help him improve, except they weren't honest at all. They were you projecting your guilt onto him, making him the villain so you could feel better about your affair. I know, do you? Because you're still trying to protect yourself, still trying to manage how you look instead of just telling the truth and dealing with the consequences. She grabbed her purse. You've got 2 weeks before he moves to San Francisco. If you want any chance of actually fixing this, you need to tell him everything before then. Let him make an informed choice about whether he wants you there. She left. I sat with her words, knowing she was right, knowing I was still too much of a coward to do it. 3 days before Jake's deadline, my coworker David showed up at my door. Jake was at work. David had this look on his face, uncomfortable but determined. I need to tell you something, he said, and you're not going to like it. My stomach dropped. What? Jake knows. The floor disappeared. Knows what? About your affair. He asked me point blank yesterday if I'd seen you with another man. I couldn't lie to him, Claire. He's my friend. I told him about the guy with flowers and he just nodded like it confirmed something he already suspected. I couldn't breathe. What did he say? Nothing. He thanked me for being honest and went back to work. But Claire, he looked relieved. Like he'd been waiting for proof that this wasn't all in his head, that he wasn't crazy for feeling like something was off. After David left, I tried calling Jake. It went straight to voicemail. I texted him, no response. He didn't come home that night or the next. On the 3rd day, his sister called me. Jake's staying with us for a few days. He asked me to tell you that he needs space and that he'll be in touch before he leaves for San Francisco. Can I talk to him, please? He doesn't want to talk to you right now. I need to explain. Explain what? That you cheated on him for months, that you made him feel like the problem while you were the one breaking your vows. He told me everything David told him, and honestly, Claire, I hope he leaves you behind when he goes to San Francisco. You've done enough damage. She hung up. I spent the next 2 days in a panic. Jake had known for almost a week and hadn't said anything. Was he waiting for me to confess? Had he already decided it was over? Was he going to divorce me? The night before his deadline, Jake finally came home. It was late, almost midnight. I was still awake, had been for hours. He found me in the kitchen. Hey, he said. Jake, we need to talk about. I accepted the San Francisco job. His voice was calm. I leave in 4 days. Okay, I'll start packing. I need to know something first. He leaned against the counter. And I need you to be completely honest with me for the first time in I don't know how long. Here it was, the moment of truth. Okay. That night you came home late from my work dinner, the night you said you were sick, were you with someone? I could have lied, could have stuck to my story, but Emma was right. If there was any chance of saving this, it required total honesty, even if honesty destroyed us. Yes, Jake closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. How many times? Multiple. Over about 3 months. Is it still going on? No, I ended it weeks ago, before you told me about San Francisco. So you ended it because you got what you wanted from it, not because you actually wanted to fix our marriage. That's not, it's more complicated. Did you sleep with him the night before you told me I was terrible at sex? Oh God, I'd been with Ryan that Thursday night, had come home late, and the next day we'd driven to wine country. Yes. He nodded slowly. I knew, I've known for weeks, I just kept hoping you'd tell me yourself that you'd give me that much respect. I'm telling you now, because I cornered you, not because you were brave enough to confess. He wiped his eyes. You let me go to therapy thinking I was the broken one. Let me dissect my childhood and my intimacy issues and convince myself that I was the reason our marriage was failing. And all along, you were cheating on me. Using me as your safe home base while you got your needs met somewhere else. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I was crying now too. You're right about all of it. I've been a coward, I've been cruel, and you deserve so much better than how I've treated you. Yeah, I do. He grabbed his keys. I'm going back to my sister's. I'll come by in the next few days to get my stuff. What does that mean for us? He stopped at the door. I don't know yet. I need time to think. Figure out if I can forgive this, if I even want to try. I love you. I believe you do, but love isn't enough when there's no trust, no respect. You didn't just cheat on me, Claire. You made me hate myself so you'd feel less guilty about it. That's not what people do to each other when they love each other. He left. I slumped to the floor, sobbing, finally feeling the full weight of what I'd done. Jake did come back over the next few days, but only to pack. He was efficient, emotionless. When I tried to talk to him, he'd just say, I'm not ready yet. His sister helped him. She shot me looks that could kill. On his last day in town, Jake left divorce papers on the kitchen counter. Not filed yet, just there. I'm not saying it's definitely over, he said when I found him in the driveway loading his car. But I think it probably is. I've started therapy with a new therapist, one who knows the full story now. She's helping me see that what you did isn't something I should just forgive because we're married. That I deserve a partner who's honest with me, who doesn't destroy my confidence to mask her own behavior. I know you're right about everything. I was trying not to cry. Is there anything I can do? Work on yourself. Figure out why you did this, not for me, for you. Because even if we're done, you'll just do this to the next person if you don't deal with your own issues. I will, I promise. He got in his car. I'll be in touch about next steps, through my lawyer probably. I watched him drive away. 7 years of marriage, ending with him leaving for a new city and a new life that probably wouldn't include me. The next few weeks were brutal. I did start therapy, found someone who specialized in infidelity and self-sabotage. Started actually unpacking why I'd chosen to cheat instead of communicate, why I'd needed validation from Ryan, why I'd been so cruel to Jake. My therapist, Dr. Chen, was direct in a way I needed. You were afraid, she told me. Afraid that if you told Jake what you needed, he'd reject you, that you'd be revealed as too much, too demanding, too sexual. So instead you made him the problem, made him inadequate so you didn't have to risk being vulnerable about your own needs. She was right. I'd grown up in a house where my mother criticized my father constantly, for not making enough money, not being ambitious enough, not being the man she'd thought she'd married. I'd sworn I wouldn't be like her. But instead of communicating like a healthy adult, I'd just gone the opposite extreme, saying nothing, expecting Jake to read my mind and seeking what I needed elsewhere when he couldn't. Work became my refuge again, but differently now. I wasn't hiding. I was just trying to rebuild some sense of competence, of being good at something. My performance was still strong, but I turned down the promotion they offered me moving to the New York office. I didn't deserve rewards right now. Emma checked on me regularly, bringing food, making sure I was actually going to therapy. You fucked up, she told me over pizza one night. Really, truly fucked up, but you can't live in that forever. At some point you need to start forgiving yourself. I don't know if I can. You will, not because you don't deserve the guilt, but because carrying it forever doesn't help anyone. Not you, not Jake, not your future relationships if this one really is over. Jake and I texted occasionally. Logistics about bills, about health insurance, about our lease. Nothing personal. I wanted to ask him how he was doing, if he was dating anyone, if he'd thought about the divorce papers. But I didn't have the right to those questions anymore. 2 months after he left, he called me. Actually called, not texted. Hey, I said, my heart racing. Hey, how are you? I'm okay, therapy's helping, how are you? Good, San Francisco's been good for me, the job's challenging in the right ways, I've been, I don't know, finding myself, I guess. I'm glad. Silence. Then I've been thinking about everything, about us, about what happened and why. Yeah, my therapist helped me see that we both failed our marriage. Not equally, what you did was worse, the lying and cheating. But I failed too. I stopped being curious about you, stopped asking what you needed, made assumptions that everything was fine because you weren't complaining. Jake, you didn't. Let me finish. I'm not excusing what you did. The affair, the lying, the cruelty, that was all you. But I've realized I need to own my part in why you felt so disconnected that you went looking elsewhere instead of talking to me. I didn't know what to say. I should have talked to you long before it got to that point. That's on me. Yeah, it is. Another pause. I don't think I can forgive the affair, not yet, maybe not ever, but I've been thinking about whether I want to try, whether there's enough good in what we built to salvage something. Hope fluttered dangerously in my chest. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm not filing the divorce papers yet, but I'm not unfiling them either. I need more time. And I need you to keep doing the work you're doing, the therapy, the self-reflection, because if we were going to try again, it would have to be completely different, complete honesty, no more avoiding hard conversations, no more making assumptions about what the other person needs. I can do that, I want to do that. We'll see, I'm not making any promises, but maybe in a few months we can talk again. Actually talk about everything. Okay, thank you for even considering, don't thank me. I'm not doing you a favor, I'm trying to figure out what I want for my own life, you're just part of that equation. His voice softened slightly. But Claire, don't wait for me, keep working on yourself whether we end up together or not, you need to fix what's broken inside you regardless of whether I'm there. We hung up. I sat with his words with the slight possibility he'd offered. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was a door not entirely closed. That was 4 months ago. Jake and I have talked a few more times since then. Carefully, slowly. He told me he's been seeing someone casually, a disclosure I had no right to be hurt by but was anyway. I told him I haven't dated anyone, that I'm focused on therapy and understanding myself. The divorce papers are still sitting unsigned. We're still married, technically. Living separate lives in separate cities, trying to figure out if there's a future or just an ending we're both too scared to finalize. My therapist says I need to stop waiting for Jake to decide my worth, that I need to forgive myself and move forward whether he forgives me or not. She's probably right. But part of my work has been accepting that I don't get to control the timeline of other people's healing. That I broke something precious and I might never get the chance to repair it. I think about that night in wine country a lot. The moment I chose cruelty over honesty, blame over vulnerability. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I'd tell Jake years earlier that I needed more from our sex life. I'd suggest therapy when I started feeling disconnected instead of looking for connection elsewhere. I'd be brave enough to say I'm unhappy instead of making him the villain of my unhappiness. But I can't go back. I can only sit with what I've learned and try to be different moving forward. People ask me sometimes why I destroyed my husband's confidence like that, why I said something so cruel. The answer everyone focuses on is that he was bad at sex. But that's not really the answer. The real answer is that I was bad at honesty, bad at vulnerability, bad at being the kind of partner who communicates instead of punishes. I said you're bad at sex because I couldn't say I cheated on you and I hate myself for it, and I'm trying to make this your fault so I can live with what I've done. He stopped trying because I broke something in him that might never fully heal. He sleeps in a guest room 8 hours away, building a new life that might not include me. And I'm here, finally being honest, finally looking at the person I became and trying to become someone different. I'm telling this story now because I saw Jake posted on social media for the first time in months. He's at some work event, smiling, looking lighter than he has in years. There's a woman next to him in a few photos. Could be a colleague, could be more. And looking at those photos, I realized I might not get my redemption arc. I might not get to show Jake the person I'm becoming and have him choose me again. He might choose to build something new with someone who didn't betray him, someone who knows how to be vulnerable without being vicious. That's what I deserve, not for him to wait while I figure out how to be better. Not for him to give me another chance just because I'm finally doing the work I should have done years ago. If you're reading this and judging me, you should. I judged myself too harshly to do, and not harshly enough. I destroyed a good man's confidence because I couldn't face my own failures. I blamed him for inadequacies that were mine. I took the coward's way out at every turn. But if you're reading this and seeing yourself, if you're in a relationship where you're looking elsewhere instead of looking inward, where you're blaming your partner for needs you haven't expressed, don't do what I did. Be braver than I was. Have the hard conversations. Ask for what you need. Risk vulnerability instead of certainty. Because the alternative is ending up like me, alone in a house that used to be a home, waiting for forgiveness I'm not sure I deserve, finally understanding what I had only after I destroyed it. The divorce papers are still on my kitchen counter. Some days I think I should just sign them, set Jake free, let him build the life he deserves without me haunting the edges of it. Other days I think about Dr. Chen's homework, writing out everything I'd do differently if I got another chance, becoming that person whether I get the chance or not. Jake's supposed to call this weekend. We're going to talk about next steps, whatever that means. Maybe he'll tell me he's moving forward with the divorce. Maybe he'll ask for more time. Maybe in some universe I don't deserve, he'll suggest we try again. Whatever he decides, I need to be okay with it. Because this story isn't really about whether Jake forgives me. It's about whether I can forgive myself, learn from who I was, and become someone who would never do this again. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. That's all I can do now, try to be the person I should have been all along, even if it's too late for the marriage I destroyed. Some mistakes you don't get to fix. You just get to live with them, learn from them, and hope that the person you're becoming is worth the pain it took to get there.